In the year 2347, humanity stood at the precipice of a new golden age, having expanded beyond the confines of Earth into the sprawling unknown of space. Colonies dotted planets, moons, and massive orbital habitats, scattered like sparks amid the darkness. These settlements were tenuous, their survival contingent upon cooperation, ingenuity, and determination. Still, for humanity, this was the fulfillment of an age-old dream. The stars themselves had become their home. It was on the fringes of human territory, on the distant colony world of Prospero Prime, where humankind first glimpsed the shadows that would alter its destiny forever. Prospero was a world known for its lush greenery and seemingly endless seas, a flourishing beacon of human ingenuity. Its orbital station hummed with the quiet harmony of routine life. Trading ships shuttled goods, and people eagerly carved out livelihoods from a new world full of promise. But routine and promise shattered in a single, terrifying moment. From the depths of uncharted space emerged ships of incomprehensible scale and elegance, massive vessels brimming with intricate lines and imposing weaponry, unmistakably alien in origin. They shimmered with otherworldly light, silently slipping from warp space as the inhabitants of Prospero Prime stared in awe and dread. Panic rippled through the orbital station as emergency broadcasts hastily informed Earth's government and military outposts across human space of this unprecedented contact. Humanity held its breath, waiting for the inevitable communication, hoping for peaceful intent but preparing for the worst. Hours later, the first transmission from the enigmatic fleet was received. Holographic imagery streamed onto every screen in the colony's control center, presenting an awe-inspiring image of an alien being that radiated regal confidence. Tall and sinewy, its translucent azure skin pulsed gently as it spoke. With meticulous eloquence, it introduced itself as a representative of the Akhar Imperium, an ancient, dominant civilization stretching across countless star systems. The Akhar emissary spoke of integration, order, and unity beneath the imperial banner, offering humanity a chance to join a vast galactic society. Their words were carefully chosen, projecting an air of magnanimity and assurance. Earth's authorities, receiving the message, immediately convened in feverish debate, weighing the risks and opportunities presented by such formidable neighbors. Yet, as diplomatic exchanges unfolded, colonists began noticing unsettling behaviors among their Akhar visitors. Alien soldiers patrolled Prospero's orbit, inspecting human ships and stations with cold indifference, barely veiled threats hiding behind formal courtesy. Akhar envoys imposed stringent regulations on humanity's movements and communications, their polite words laced with implicit menace. Soon, representatives from the Akhar Imperium arrived on Earth itself, towering, statuesque beings flanked by intimidating ranks of armored warriors. Their arrival, broadcast across the globe, captivated and horrified humanity in equal measure. Every nation, city, and household watched as the aliens dictated their terms, offering a seemingly peaceful surrender to Akhar law and governance in exchange for humanity's continued existence. Many human leaders cautiously accepted, fearful of the consequences should they refuse such powerful beings. Others protested vehemently, declaring that humanity's freedom must not be surrendered without resistance. But humanity's leaders were sharply divided, many believing cooperation with the Akhar was essential for survival, especially given humanity's relative technological and military inferiority. Days stretched into weeks, and weeks into months. Life changed dramatically under Akhar supervision. New restrictions emerged daily, laws established under the rigid hierarchy of the Imperium. Freedoms previously taken for granted disappeared overnight, replaced with authoritarian control. It became clear that Akhar viewed humanity not as equals or partners, but as subjects, expendable servants destined to fulfill whatever role the Empire deemed necessary. Resentment brewed beneath the surface as humanity watched helplessly while Akhar dominance tightened. the once bright dream of peaceful galactic expansion replaced with bitter reality. Yet among humans across various colonies and worlds, whispers of resistance began to spread. Those who refused to accept this imposed servitude began forming secret alliances, planning and organizing discreetly beneath Akhar notice. On Earth, in the crumbling remnants of the Planetary Defense Command, Captain Elena Cruz watched the unfolding subjugation with fury and resolve. A veteran officer widely respected for her courage and intelligence, Cruz had grown up believing humanity's destiny lay in exploration, self-determination, and the embrace of the unknown. To her, accepting Akhar rule was unthinkable. Humanity deserved better. Quietly, determinedly, Elena Cruz began reaching out to trusted friends, former comrades, and influential leaders who still harbored hope of resistance. Her charisma and unwavering passion galvanized those around her, igniting a spark of defiance that quickly grew. As the Akhar tightened their control, Cruz worked relentlessly to nurture that spark into a flame powerful enough to unite humanity against their oppressive overlords. But the Akhar Imperium, vigilant and merciless, closely monitored humanity's every move. They stood poised to crush any hint of defiance, unaware of the courage and determination building among the stars. Yet as the future darkened, humanity began rallying behind Cruz, sensing that she might be their last, best hope for freedom. And thus, humanity's confrontation with the Akhar Imperium began, not through overt warfare or grand speeches, but through small acts of defiance, whispered plans, and hidden courage. It was the start of a rebellion that would soon ripple across the stars, shaking the very foundations of the Akhar's ancient empire. Humanity stood at the edge of a precipice, ready to take a leap of faith, driven by the belief that even against overwhelming odds, freedom was worth fighting and dying for. Within mere months, the initial facade of benevolence projected by the Akhar Imperium had dissolved, replaced by the stark reality of their ruthless, authoritarian rule. Humanity's carefully nurtured colonies, once vibrant with optimism and pioneering spirit, now choked beneath the oppressive laws imposed by their alien overlords. Freedom, autonomy, and hope became distant memories as the Akhar tightened their grip with every passing day. From the prosperous urban centers of Earth to the burgeoning orbital stations around distant stars, human life had undergone a brutal transformation. Society functioned beneath the watchful gaze of Akhar supervisors, rigid, unyielding overseers who tolerated no dissent or deviation from imperial decree. Laws enacted by Akhar commanders were swift, unambiguous, and harsh, backed by immediate and violent enforcement. Captain Elena Cruz witnessed firsthand how quickly humanity was brought to heel, stripped of pride, dignity, and independence. She moved quietly among the remnants of Earth's fleet, her position allowing her discreet access to intelligence reports from across humanity's shattered territories. The reports painted a grim picture. Forced labor camps had emerged on frontier worlds, industrial production had been commandeered to serve Akhar war demands, and dissenting voices vanished overnight. The sheer scale of oppression seemed designed to break the human spirit completely. Earth's leaders, once proud statesmen and women, respected ambassadors, and fierce military strategists, had either submitted meekly or disappeared entirely, replaced by puppets loyal only to Akhar interests. Many openly collaborated with the Imperium, either out of fear or misguided hope that cooperation might spare humanity the worst. Others quietly sympathized with the growing murmurs of rebellion, but were too afraid to act openly. A suffocating atmosphere of suspicion pervaded society, tearing communities apart as neighbors turned against neighbors, desperate to prove loyalty to their new masters. But for Cruz, acceptance was never an option. From her hidden sanctuary in the ruins of Earth's orbital defense headquarters, she meticulously gathered intelligence, mapping Akhar movements and studying their weaknesses. Each piece of data collected strengthened her resolve, fueling a quiet fire of rebellion. Her voice, strong and clear despite oppressive secrecy, gradually inspired others who desperately yearned for freedom. Within the shadows, Cruz slowly assembled an informal network, a fragile alliance that spanned multiple colonies, orbital stations, and planetary settlements. The Akhar, however, were not merely ruthless conquerors. They were cunning manipulators who understood human psychology. To crush lingering resistance, they systematically eroded humanity's cultural identity. Human traditions and history were suppressed. Schools were forced to teach Akhar-approved curricula, and the very language humanity spoke became tightly regulated, with certain concepts of freedom declared dangerous, even treasonous. Families were separated, dissenters punished severely, and rewards were given to informants who betrayed potential resistance leaders. Yet amidst this bleak reality, Elena Cruz continued to maneuver, silently building alliances, fostering unity, and meticulously preparing for rebellion. Her magnetic charisma and unwavering determination became legendary whispers that passed between desperate colonists and oppressed populations. Gradually, she emerged as an inspiring symbol of defiance against impossible odds, representing humanity's collective yearning for liberty. Meanwhile, Cruz carefully studied her enemies. She discovered that beneath their ruthless efficiency, the Akhar possessed their own weaknesses and internal divisions. A strict hierarchy dominated their culture, defined by unyielding obedience and absolute power concentrated in a rigid ruling caste. Lower-ranking Akhar officers appeared resentful and dissatisfied, providing potential leverage. Cruz theorized that by exploiting these fault lines, humanity might yet have a chance to reclaim its autonomy. But the Akhar, ever watchful, sensed the undercurrents of rebellion. They intensified surveillance, purged suspected dissidents, and initiated aggressive patrols across colonies. Ships bearing the emblem of the Imperium swept the space lanes, their presence a grim reminder of the omnipresent threat looming over humanity. The aliens responded swiftly to even minor defiance, making brutal examples of resistance sympathizers to terrorize the population into submission. Cruz soon learned firsthand how ruthless the Akhar could be when a small human colony on the mining moon Eos attempted rebellion. The Imperium's retribution was swift and merciless. Akhar warships obliterated the mining colony from orbit, publicly broadcasting the annihilation across all human-controlled worlds as a chilling warning. Thousands perished instantly, their desperate pleas for mercy haunting humanity's consciousness. The message was crystal clear: disobedience meant death. Though shaken by the slaughter at Eos, Cruz refused to relent. The atrocities hardened her resolve further, convincing her that humanity's survival depended on organized, galaxy-wide resistance. To succeed, Cruz recognized the necessity of uniting humanity with others suffering beneath Akhar domination. Alien species whose voices had been silenced long before humanity's first encounter with the Imperium. Despite the overwhelming odds, Cruz pushed forward, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. Her underground movement gained momentum, carefully expanding its reach across human colonies. Each new ally, each whispered promise of rebellion, gave humanity renewed strength. Secret bases, hidden caches of weapons and resources, and encrypted communications emerged from the shadows, foundations of a force strong enough to challenge the mighty Imperium itself. Cruz knew the coming struggle would be long, painful, and perhaps ultimately futile. Yet she pressed onward, her belief unwavering, guided by the conviction that humanity's destiny was not subjugation and servitude, but freedom among the stars. As the weight of Akhar obedience pressed down harder than ever, Cruz quietly rallied humanity's shattered hopes, whispering encouragement to those who would listen. The Akhar could rule by fear, but as long as a single spark of defiance remained, humanity's spirit would endure. As Elena Cruz stepped deeper into the shadows, planning the impossible, a rebellion that could reshape the galaxy, the burden of obedience humanity carried slowly became the very force driving them toward liberation. Across the bleak expanses of occupied space, hope flickered secretly like distant stars against the darkness. Beneath the shadow of Akhar oppression, humanity's whispers of resistance had gradually grown louder, carried forth by courageous men and women who refused to surrender their dignity to alien domination. At the heart of this slowly emerging rebellion stood Captain Elena Cruz, whose quiet strength and indomitable will have become a beacon for those who still believed freedom was possible. Hidden within the abandoned mining tunnels beneath the icy surface of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, Cruz had established the core of humanity's resistance. Far from the prying eyes of Akhar patrols, the tunnels have been transformed into a makeshift command center. Rough-hewn chambers lined with stolen computers and salvaged communication devices. Within these frigid halls, maps of occupied colonies adorn the walls, marked with cryptic symbols identifying Akhar forces, sympathizers, and potential allies. From Europa, Cruz tirelessly coordinated contacts between scattered resistance cells, facilitating encrypted communications to evade Akhar surveillance. Each message sent was a calculated risk. Detection meant instant annihilation. Yet, she persevered, guiding her network through cautious acts of defiance, small disruptions of supply lines, carefully orchestrated sabotage of Akhar equipment, and clandestine rescues of imprisoned dissidents. Each success bolstered morale, rekindling the embers of defiance in humanity's weary heart. But Cruz knew humanity could not face the Akhar Imperium alone. She had long believed that only by uniting oppressed species across the galaxy could a meaningful rebellion be possible. For months, she had quietly observed, analyzed, and reached out to other civilizations, aliens who had languished beneath Akhar tyranny far longer than humans. Her first breakthrough came with the silent, resilient Zelnathi, a species driven underground after centuries of brutal Akhar enslavement. After months of careful negotiation and mutual suspicion, a delegation from the Zelnathi arrived secretly on Europa. Their ambassadors, elegant beings cloaked in metallic robes, spoke in cautious, whispered voices, recounting tales of generations spent under the relentless boot of the Akhar. Their presence marked the beginning of a powerful, albeit fragile, alliance. Inspired by the human-Zelnathi partnership, other alien factions cautiously emerged from hiding. Delegates from Avar, a fierce warrior race reduced to laborers under the Akhar, brought their strength and fighting experience. Next came envoys from the Qwar, scholarly aliens forced into intellectual slavery by Akhar overlords. Each alliance, though tenuous at first, became stronger under Cruz's careful diplomacy. Humanity's struggle was quickly evolving into a galaxy-wide fight against oppression, united by the shared scars of imperial cruelty. Despite growing unity, mistrust lingered. Centuries of Akhar manipulation had bred suspicion among the oppressed races, and internal rivalries threatened to unravel this fledgling coalition. Cruz, sensing these divisions, tirelessly mediated conflicts, guided by the singular vision of a future free from Akhar control. Her charisma and sincere empathy broke down barriers, forging genuine bonds among former adversaries. Even as the coalition grew stronger, Cruz never underestimated the Imperium. The Akhar responded to mounting resistance with ruthless efficiency, hunting rebel cells relentlessly. Informants within occupied territories reported disturbing new tactics. The Akhar began forcibly implanting neural trackers into humans, enslaving their minds and turning captured rebels into informants and saboteurs against their own kind. Cruz understood clearly. Every delay brought greater peril, yet premature action meant certain annihilation. Carefully, she planned humanity's next moves with the precision of a strategist who knew no second chance would come. Resistance leaders across occupied planets received covert orders, directing synchronized assaults on key Akhar installations. The operation would signal humanity's defiance to the entire galaxy, hoping to inspire a wave of insurrection that would shake Akhar dominance to its core. The day arrived with tension thick enough to freeze Europa's icy winds. At her command, simultaneous attacks erupted across a dozen worlds. On Mars, hidden rebel fighters stormed an Akhar command center, seizing control long enough to broadcast a message of defiance across humanity's communication networks. On Titan, rebels sabotaged a crucial Akhar fuel depot, sending plumes of fire roaring across the frozen landscape. Across distant colonies, seemingly ordinary people, farmers, miners, teachers, rose up courageously, striking the first significant blows against their oppressors. Yet victory proved fleeting. Though the coalition struck fiercely, Akhar retaliation was swift and devastating. Entire settlements were razed from orbit, rebel cells mercilessly purged. Thousands died, their lives sacrificed in desperate bids for freedom. Cruz felt each loss profoundly, yet she never wavered, knowing their courage had finally broken the illusion of Akhar invulnerability. As the dust settled, the Imperium's reaction exposed vulnerabilities Cruz had suspected all along. The Akhar, it seemed, were not merely driven by arrogance or cruelty. They were also deeply fearful of losing control. Their brutal responses to rebellion only served to galvanize resistance further. The fragile coalition held firm, bound tighter by shared sacrifice and the knowledge that retreat now meant surrender forever. Captain Cruz's next step became clear. To sustain rebellion and truly threaten Akhar rule, humanity and its allies needed more than acts of sabotage. They needed a decisive victory. With meticulous calculation, she selected her target, the heavily fortified Akhar command outpost on Saturn's moon, Titania. Seizing control, they would cripple Akhar communications and supply chains, buying the resistance precious time to grow even stronger. Yet even as preparations intensified, Cruz felt a growing unease. Through encrypted transmissions, her spies within Akhar ranks relayed troubling intelligence. Dark rumors hinted at ancient secrets buried deep within the heart of the Imperium, secrets powerful enough to unravel their entire empire if exposed. Cruz realized that humanity's survival hinged not only on military victories, but also on uncovering the truth hidden behind Akhar dominance. Determined to pursue every advantage, Cruz dispatched elite operatives to infiltrate Akhar territory, intent on discovering these hidden truths. The rebellion, born from whispers and darkness, had become a powerful force, ready to strike at the very heart of their oppressors. Captain Elena Cruz stood at the forefront, a symbol of defiance to countless worlds, planting seeds of rebellion that would grow into a storm powerful enough to reshape the galaxy itself. The uprising had spread like wildfire across humanity's colonies, inspiring hope where only despair had once existed. The rebellion's successes reverberated through the occupied territories, a powerful testament to the courage and resilience of humans and their newfound alien allies. But the Akhar Imperium, though momentarily shaken, responded with merciless precision. Their vengeance was swift, calculated, and terrifyingly efficient, determined to erase every trace of rebellion. Captain Elena Cruz had known retaliation would be severe, but the reality surpassed even her darkest fears. Earth itself became the epicenter of Akhar wrath. Massive alien warships appeared abruptly in orbit, darkening the skies over cities that had dared to rise in defiance. Within hours, relentless bombardments reduced entire neighborhoods to ashes, vaporizing landmarks that had stood proudly for centuries. The Great Pyramids crumbled beneath waves of energy fire. The Eiffel Tower collapsed into a smoking heap of metal, and the Statue of Liberty lay submerged beneath a turbulent, smoking sea. The Akhar struck with no distinction between military and civilian targets, intent on punishing humanity for its insolence. Across Earth, the fragmented remains of humanity's military forces fought bravely, desperately trying to protect their homeworld. Pilots raced into hopeless aerial battles, their small fighter ships bravely facing colossal Akhar dreadnoughts. Infantry units engaged alien troops on the ground, street by street, house by house, fighting heroically despite overwhelming odds. But bravery alone could not bridge the staggering gap in technology and firepower. One by one, human positions fell silent, overwhelmed by an enemy who knew neither mercy nor compassion. From her hidden base on Europa, Cruz listened helplessly as transmissions from Earth painted a vivid picture of destruction and despair. Each distress call, each cry for help, weighed heavily on her conscience. The once proud military she'd served so faithfully now faced annihilation. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was bleeding out before her eyes. Determined not to abandon Earth's defenders, Cruz ordered reinforcements from her allied colonies. Alien allies rallied alongside human soldiers, offering their own lives for a planet they'd never visited, but whose struggle had become a symbol of shared oppression. Var warriors fought with unmatched ferocity, engaging Akhar ground forces head-on in brutal melee combat. The intellectual QYR provided tactical expertise, desperately coordinating defensive strategies from shadows. Zelnathi scouts bravely infiltrated enemy lines, sabotaging Akhar supply lines at great personal risk. But despite their combined courage and sacrifice, humanity's forces were systematically crushed. The Akhar Imperium deployed new, horrifying weapons against Earth's defenders, unleashing bioweapons designed to target human DNA. Soldiers collapsed mid-battle, writhing in pain as microscopic nanomachines dismantled their bodies from within. Entire battalions vanished, consumed by terrifying new devices that erased their existence in mere seconds. Earth's defenders were rapidly dwindling, their resistance transforming into a desperate, final stand against extinction itself. In a heartbreaking broadcast that reached across colonies, Earth's last remaining leader, Admiral Joseph Marquez, addressed humanity one final time. His voice, once strong and unwavering, trembled with quiet resignation. "We have fought valiantly, each of us driven by the conviction that freedom matters, that humanity's spirit deserves to remain free among the stars. Though we face extinction, never doubt that our struggle has meaning. We defied tyrants. We refused servitude. Let history remember us not as victims, but as heroes who resisted oppression until our final breath." The broadcast ended abruptly, silenced forever by the ruthless precision of Akhar bombardment. Grief and anger swept through humanity's scattered survivors. Captain Cruz, shattered by the enormity of loss, felt an overwhelming guilt she had never known before. Yet amid her sorrow rose an unwavering resolve. Earth's defenders had fallen, yes, but their sacrifice would never be forgotten or in vain. Cruz summoned every remaining human resistance leader and alien ally to Europa, convening an urgent council beneath the moon's frozen surface. Assembled there in the stark tunnels were battle-scarred commanders, weary strategists, and grieving survivors from a dozen alien species, each sharing humanity's pain, each united by a burning desire for justice. In the solemn darkness, Cruz spoke clearly and forcefully, her words echoing with determination. "Earth has fallen. Our home lies in ruin. But the spirit of Earth's defenders, their courage, their sacrifice, lives within each of us. The Akhar Imperium believes they have broken our will, that they've extinguished our hope. They are wrong. Their cruelty will not crush us, it unites us. Humanity and its allies will rise again, stronger than ever, and we will ensure that Earth's sacrifice marks the beginning of the Imperium's end." The council erupted into fierce agreement, galvanized by Cruz's resolve. Plans began immediately, shifting focus from defense to revenge and liberation. The coalition would strike not with scattered acts of defiance, but through coordinated assaults designed to weaken Akhar influence across the galaxy. They would take the fight directly to the Imperium's heart. Yet even as strategies formed, Cruz received intelligence from spies embedded deep within Akhar ranks. These informants spoke urgently of hidden truths within the Empire, secrets that, if exposed, could destabilize the Imperium from within. The spies hinted cryptically at ancient conspiracies, forbidden technologies, and dark secrets capable of fracturing Akhar society if fully revealed. Cruz realized humanity's survival now hinged not merely on battlefield victories, but also on unveiling these hidden truths. To defeat the Akhar, humanity and its allies had to become not only warriors but truth-bearers, exposing the dark heart of their oppressors to the galaxy. Though Earth lay devastated, humanity's spirit refused to die. Driven by memories of fallen comrades and the promise of future freedom, Cruz and her coalition stood determined to ensure Earth's sacrifice would ignite a flame powerful enough to illuminate even the darkest corners of Akhar tyranny. They would uncover the truth hidden beneath the Imperium's ruthless facade, and in doing so, reclaim their right to exist among the stars. The fall of Earth's defenders had become more than a tragedy. It had become the rallying cry that would inspire an entire galaxy to rise against oppression, forever changing the course of galactic history. From the ashes of Earth's devastation emerged an alliance born not just of shared suffering, but of unprecedented unity and purpose. Humanity, reeling from catastrophic losses, found itself no longer isolated. Captain Elena Cruz, the resilient heart of the rebellion, understood clearly that the only hope of survival lay in the unity forged by diverse species who shared a common enemy, the oppressive Akhar Imperium. The frozen chambers beneath Europa's icy surface became the symbolic heart of the new coalition, a place where ancient prejudices were set aside in favor of collective survival. Humanity was joined by Zelnathi strategists, Var warriors, and Qyr intellectuals, each species bringing unique strengths to the alliance. The coalition grew quickly, inspiring other oppressed races, once silenced by fear, to take courage and join their ranks. Species who had been enslaved, driven underground, or manipulated into submission suddenly found hope in the rebellion humanity had sparked. Yet uniting these varied species proved challenging. Differences in culture, beliefs, and history frequently caused tension, threatening to fracture the fragile alliance. At first, mistrust ran deep. The Var, known for their fierce pride and martial traditions, clashed frequently with the more reserved Qyr, who approached conflict from a scholarly, cautious perspective. Meanwhile, the Zelnathi, once enslaved by the Akhar, were wary of trusting others, haunted by centuries of betrayal and exploitation. Captain Cruz recognized immediately that if the alliance was to succeed, trust had to become its cornerstone. She spent countless hours mediating disputes, leveraging her diplomatic skills and innate charisma to foster understanding among rival factions. Slowly, grudging respect emerged. On joint operations against Akhar installations, diverse coalition members saw firsthand the courage and sacrifice of their allies, eroding ancient distrust and building genuine camaraderie. The coalition's effectiveness grew rapidly. Coalition forces executed strategic assaults on Akhar installations throughout occupied space, disrupting supply chains and communications networks crucial to maintaining the Imperium's iron grip. On Ganymede, a coordinated strike by Var warriors and human fighters destroyed a massive Akhar weapons depot, severely hindering their military operations. Meanwhile, Qyr analysts intercepted and decrypted critical enemy communications, turning the Imperium's own tactics against them. For the first time, the Akhar began to falter. Their responses grew frantic and disorganized, revealing the first cracks in the mighty empire's facade of invincibility. Coalition spies, embedded deep within Akhar ranks, reported growing dissent among lower-ranking commanders, who questioned the brutal methods employed by their own leadership. Internal discord presented opportunities Cruz seized upon, further weakening the Akhar's ability to maintain control. But victory was far from assured. The Imperium, though weakened, still held immense power. Facing relentless attacks, the Akhar deployed their most advanced weapons, devastating rebel forces in vicious counterstrikes. Thousands of coalition members lost their lives, their sacrifice a grim reminder of the enemy's unwavering resolve to maintain dominance. Amidst the turmoil, Cruz received a startling transmission from a source deep within Akhar territory, a defector named General Thraker, once a high-ranking Akhar commander, now disgusted by his empire's brutality. Thraker revealed the Imperium's greatest vulnerability. Its rulers guarded dark secrets beneath layers of propaganda and violence. Secrets that, if exposed, would fracture Akhar society irreparably. Intrigued yet wary, Cruz arranged a secret meeting with Thraker on a remote asteroid in neutral space. Under the watchful gaze of coalition sharpshooters, Thraker revealed that the Akhar Empire was built upon ancient and forbidden technology salvaged from a long-extinct civilization known as the Precursors. At the heart of Akhar power lay a mysterious entity, the Elder Core, a sentient, ancient machine capable of manipulating minds, controlling thought, and maintaining absolute obedience within Akhar society. Thraker explained that the Elder Core's influence extended throughout Akhar leadership, subtly guiding their actions, ambitions, and cruelty. Cruz realized immediately the significance of this revelation. Exposing the Elder Core's existence would devastate Akhar morale, fracturing their carefully controlled society and providing an opening for the coalition to deliver a decisive blow. Yet accessing the Elder Core would be nearly impossible. It resided deep within the Akhar homeworld, heavily guarded by elite troops and defenses so formidable that no enemy had ever breached them. Determined to succeed despite overwhelming odds, Cruz called together the coalition's leaders beneath Europa's icy surface once again. With unwavering conviction, she detailed Thraker's revelations, proposing a daring, seemingly suicidal mission, infiltrating the Akhar homeworld, exposing the Elder Core to the galaxy, and using its secrets to dismantle Akhar power forever. The coalition debated fiercely. The risk was enormous, the potential cost unthinkably high. But ultimately, every member recognized that this was their only viable path to freedom. Leaders from each species stepped forward, volunteering their bravest warriors, brightest strategists, and most dedicated operatives to the mission. In a historic moment of unity, the diverse species pledged their forces to the cause. Preparations began immediately, combining the unique strengths of humanity, our bravery, Zelnathi cunning, and QIR intellect into an elite strike force unmatched in the galaxy's history. Captain Cruz herself would lead the assault, embodying humanity's courage and unyielding determination. As the coalition prepared for their perilous mission, Cruz privately grappled with doubt. She had lost friends, comrades, and Earth itself in the struggle. Her memories were haunted by the echoes of suffering and sacrifice. Yet she knew retreat was no longer an option. Humanity had inspired an unprecedented alliance, a coalition that had transformed desperation into defiance, suffering into strength. Now united, they stood poised to challenge the very heart of Akhar dominance. They were an unlikely coalition, bound not by common heritage, but by shared dreams of liberty and justice. Together, they would strike a blow that could shatter the chains of oppression forever. As coalition forces rallied behind Captain Cruz, a sense of destiny filled the air. The Akhar Imperium had attempted to extinguish humanity's spirit, yet their cruelty had forged an alliance more resilient than ever imagined. The galaxy itself awaited the coalition's next move, poised on the brink of a rebellion that could reshape the fate of countless worlds. Captain Elena Cruz, standing resolute at the coalition's forefront, prepared to lead them into the heart of darkness, toward victory, liberation, and the possibility of finally reclaiming humanity's place among the stars. The Akhar homeworld, Varades, loomed ominously before the coalition's assembled fleet, a world cloaked in darkness, encircled by immense orbital fortresses and fleets of imposing warships. Its surface, shrouded by swirling storms and imposing fortress cities, represented the pinnacle of Akhar dominance. The mere sight of it sent chills through the coalition forces gathered in the shadows beyond the planet's perimeter, their ships silent and concealed among asteroid fields at the edge of Varades' system. Captain Elena Cruz stood aboard her flagship, the newly rebuilt cruiser Defiant, watching through the observation deck as the final preparations for the assault were completed. At her side stood representatives from each allied race: General Carr of the Fierce Var, Ambassador Ninethor of the Zelnathi, and Chief Scholar Irani of the Qyr. Each had pledged their lives, forces, and honor to this desperate strike, knowing full well it might be their last chance to break the chains of Akhar oppression. The mission was audacious, perhaps suicidal. Infiltrate the heavily fortified Akhar capital, penetrate the inner sanctum, and destroy the Elder Core, the sentient machine responsible for the Akhar's ruthless obedience and conquest. Cruz had spent sleepless nights poring over Thraker's intel, formulating detailed plans alongside the coalition's brightest minds. Now, as the fleet readied itself, she felt a mix of anxiety and determination. This battle would decide humanity's fate and reshape the entire galaxy. At Cruz's signal, a coordinated fleet-wide broadcast announced the operation's commencement. Hundreds of coalition ships simultaneously surged from their concealed positions, engaging the Akhar defenders with unprecedented ferocity. The battle erupted into chaos. Energy beams slashed through the void, ships disintegrated in dazzling bursts of fire, and Akhar defenses responded with overwhelming fury. As battle raged above, Cruz and her elite strike force descended to Varadi's storm-racked surface in cloaked landing shuttles. Guided by intelligence from defectors, they skillfully evaded planetary defenses, navigating through dense clouds of radioactive dust and towering spires of black metal, finally landing undetected within the shadow of the capital itself. On foot, Cruz's small team moved swiftly toward the central citadel, the massive structure housing the Elder Core. At every turn, danger lurked. Automated sentries patrolled tirelessly. Deadly traps lay hidden in shadows, and Akhar soldiers awaited any intrusion with disciplined readiness. Yet Cruz and her allies moved silently, blending stealth tactics from human ingenuity, Zelnathi cunning, and Var prowess. Each obstacle overcome reinforced the team's belief in their unity. Upon reaching the fortress gates, Cruz's forces stormed forward, engaged in fierce combat with Akhar's elite guard, battle-hardened warriors whose loyalty had been twisted by the Elder Core's influence. Laser fire illuminated the corridors in harsh, blinding flashes. Var warriors fought valiantly, charging fearlessly into enemy ranks. Qyr technicians hacked into security terminals, opening sealed passageways. Zelnathi operatives moved silently, disabling traps and cutting off enemy reinforcements. Eventually, battered but resolute, Cruz and a small core of survivors reached the inner chamber, a vast, cavernous space dominated by a pulsating structure of alien metal and crystal at its center, the Elder Core itself. Its presence radiated palpable menace. Pulsing with light and energy, it projected powerful waves of psychic influence, attempting to corrupt their thoughts, break their resolve, and manipulate their minds into submission. Cruz felt her vision blur, memories shifting, twisting reality. Faces of fallen comrades, families lost, and doubts emerged in vivid, torturous images designed to break her will. But Cruz resisted, anchoring herself with memories of Earth, of human perseverance, of her allies who had sacrificed so much. Fighting through the crushing pressure, she shouted commands, rallying her companions to remain strong. The Elder Core communicated directly into their minds, speaking in 1,000 whispers. You fight hopelessly. Freedom is an illusion. Obedience ensures survival. Accept your fate. Defiant, Cruz stepped forward, confronting the entity directly. We choose freedom, even if it costs everything, she shouted, raising a powerful explosive charge prepared specifically to destroy the Elder Core. At that moment, General Thraker appeared, wounded and exhausted, having secretly infiltrated the chamber during the chaos. He approached Cruz, urging her to reconsider. Destroying it may not free us. It may doom us all, Thraker warned urgently. The Elder Core is more than a weapon. It contains the consciousness of the ancient Akhar rulers, mad tyrants who wish to control every living being. If you destroy it, their minds could spread like poison, infecting countless Akhar soldiers with their madness. Cruz hesitated, realizing the gravity of Thraker's warning. Her decision carried galaxy-altering consequences. Destroying the Elder Core meant risking unleashing an even greater evil, but leaving it intact meant allowing Akhar oppression to continue indefinitely. As the battle raged around her, Cruz resolved not to merely destroy, but to fully expose the Elder Core's truth. Using QYR technology, she broadcast the Elder Core's consciousness directly to every Akhar commander across their empire, revealing the horrifying truth. Their empire was founded upon manipulation and madness, their loyalty forced upon them by ancient tyrants imprisoned within the machine. Across the Akhar ranks, chaos erupted. Soldiers turned against commanders. Commanders abandoned their posts. The Imperium, once unified by fear, descended into turmoil. Seizing the opportunity, Cruz detonated explosives strategically placed around the Elder Core's containment chamber. The Elder Core collapsed in upon itself, violently severing the psychic connections binding Akhar society. Cruz and her team narrowly escaped as the fortress crumbled. Outside, coalition forces had broken through Akhar orbital defenses, their ships now dominating Varadi skies. Coalition broadcasts carried the Elder Core's revelations across the galaxy, shattering Akhar morale. Entire fleets surrendered, planetary governors renounced the Imperium, and the once unbreakable grip of the Akhar shattered irreparably. Returning triumphantly to the fleet, Captain Elena Cruz was met with cheers, not only from humans, but from warriors of all allied races who had fought and sacrificed side by side. In the victory's aftermath, it became clear their unity had reshaped galactic destiny. Yet Cruz, despite their triumph, understood clearly this was only the beginning. Even as celebrations echoed throughout the fleet, distant threats loomed. Dark forces would inevitably seek to exploit the Imperium's collapse, threatening newfound freedoms. Yet Cruz felt hope. Humanity's defiance had sparked a galaxy-wide transformation, an unprecedented unity born of suffering and courage. And so, with the Elder Core shattered, the Akhar broken, and the coalition triumphant, Elena Cruz turned toward the future, prepared to defend this fragile new liberty with every breath. The heart of the Akhar had fallen, but the fight for lasting freedom was only just beginning. The fall of the Elder Core was felt across the galaxy, sending shockwaves throughout the Akhar Imperium, fracturing an empire built upon fear and unquestioning obedience. The revelation of its dark origins triggered a violent upheaval within Akhar society, unleashing chaos among once loyal forces. The mighty Imperium, seemingly invincible just days earlier, now teetered on the brink of collapse, leaving humanity and its allies with a brief but vital opportunity to secure lasting freedom. Captain Elena Cruz stood aboard the Defiant, overseeing the aftermath of the battle above Varades. Before her stretched an expanse of wreckage, shattered warships, drifting debris, and broken remnants of a once unstoppable armada. Despite the coalition's victory, her heart was heavy. Countless lives had been sacrificed to reach this moment. The road to freedom had been paved with profound loss. Yet there was no time for mourning. Cruz knew that dismantling the Elder Core was merely the beginning. The Imperium's shattered remains threatened to spiral into warlordism and chaos. Akhar factions, once united by oppressive order, now vied violently for control, each hoping to seize power in the vacuum left behind. Without decisive action, the galaxy risked plunging into endless conflict, replacing one tyranny with another. Recognizing this imminent threat, Cruz gathered the coalition leaders aboard her flagship. In the meeting room, crowded with battle-scarred warriors and exhausted commanders, she laid out their next mission clearly. Our work isn't finished yet. If we abandon the galaxy now, Akhar remnants will rebuild tyranny from ashes. We must solidify this peace by dismantling the last stronghold of Akhar loyalists and ensuring freedom truly endures. Her words resonated deeply. The coalition, forged in desperation, now bound by camaraderie and sacrifice, unanimously agreed. The final reckoning would come at Argos Prime, the last stronghold of Akhar loyalists and fanatics fiercely committed to the Imperium's oppressive ideals. It was there the last battles would unfold, determining whether freedom's fragile victory could endure. The combined coalition fleet swiftly traveled to Argos Prime, arriving to find the planet entrenched and fiercely defended by remaining Akhar zealots. Orbital defense platforms encircled the planet like sentinels, bristling with devastating weapons and protected by loyalist fleets determined to hold their position at all costs. Without hesitation, the coalition struck with ruthless precision. Elena Cruz led the assault personally, her voice steady and resolute as she coordinated attacks, her presence inspiring every warrior fighting alongside her. Human pilots flew daring raids against defense platforms. VAR warriors boarded enemy vessels with unmatched ferocity, and Q-wire tacticians orchestrated strikes with surgical accuracy. The coalition, now battle-hardened and fiercely united, shattered loyalist defenses systematically, methodically clearing a path to Argos' prime surface. Below, Akhar loyalists had fortified themselves within sprawling citadels and underground bunkers, prepared to fight to the last breath. Cruz, determined to end the conflict decisively, led elite strike teams directly into the heart of enemy strongholds, facing intense resistance from Akhar troops desperate to preserve their shattered empire. The fighting on Argos Prime was brutal and unforgiving. Laser fire lit corridors, explosions rocked fortress walls, and warriors on both sides fought with relentless determination. But coalition forces steadily advanced, their shared experiences now forged into bonds of unbreakable loyalty. Even amid the fiercest battles, Cruz's unwavering courage inspired those around her, pushing forward until finally, the central loyalist command center was breached. Within its halls stood the last Akhar High Commander, Arcturus, a formidable figure who had long served the Elder Corps. Arcturus challenged Cruz directly, a final symbolic confrontation between freedom and oppression. The two fought fiercely, each blow striking not only physically but resonating symbolically with the gravity of their ideological conflict. After an intense battle, Cruz emerged victorious, defeating Arcturus decisively. In his final moments, Arcturus spoke bitterly, admitting that Akhar leadership had always known their empire was built upon lies and cruelty, but they had chosen power over compassion, control over justice. His dying words echoed hauntingly through the chambers of the fortress, a stark reminder of the corrupting nature of absolute power. With Arcturus's fall, the remaining Akhar resistance collapsed. Loyalists surrendered across Argos Prime, accepting defeat at last. Humanity and its allies stood victorious, their impossible rebellion having shattered one of the galaxy's greatest oppressors. In the aftermath, coalition forces spread swiftly throughout former Akhar territories, dismantling remaining symbols of oppression, freeing prisoners and slaves, and offering aid to those once victimized by imperial cruelty. For the first time in centuries, countless species breathed freely, reclaiming dignity stolen from them generations before. Weeks later, coalition representatives gathered on Earth, now slowly healing from its wounds, to formally establish the Galactic Commonwealth, an alliance based upon mutual respect, cooperation, and freedom. Captain Elena Cruz, reluctantly yet unanimously chosen as the Commonwealth's first leader, accepted the role humbly, knowing that her true legacy lay not in personal glory, but in the freedom she had helped secure for billions. Yet even as celebrations echoed throughout the galaxy, Cruz remained cautious. Freedom had been won at immense cost, and vigilance would forever be required. The remnants of Akhar tyranny still lurked among distant stars. Threats of other oppressors loomed on unseen horizons, and internal divisions still tested the Commonwealth's unity. But humanity, now standing side by side with countless other species, was ready for the challenge. They had tasted freedom and would defend it fiercely, never again accepting oppression or subjugation. On a clear night on Earth, Elena Cruz stood quietly, staring upward into a star-filled sky, her thoughts heavy with the burdens of leadership and the memories of those who had fallen. A young officer approached hesitantly, saluting respectfully. "Captain, are we finally free?" he asked, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. Cruz smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Freedom is never a destination. It's a journey we must continually fight for. Today, yes, we're free, but tomorrow brings new challenges. Our task now is to ensure that future generations never forget the cost of freedom, nor the responsibility it carries." The young officer nodded, understanding her wisdom, before leaving her alone once more beneath the endless stars. Cruz turned back toward the sky, knowing clearly that though the Akhar had fallen, humanity's story and the struggle for freedom had only just begun.